Alright, so today I want to introduce you to the Lavender Albino ball python. The Lavender Albino is one of those ball python genes that actually changes quite a bit from when it's a hatchling to when it's an adult. And sometimes you can actually be really surprised when you buy a snake and then several months later, or maybe a year or two later, it transforms into a completely different looking snake. It's kind of the same way if you actually get some pastels. Some pastels can actually brown out. And another one that really changes a lot is the coral glow or the banana. They have a lot of purples and oranges, and it looks really impressive as a hatchling, and then they grow up into this kind of two-tone yellow with spots all over. Some of these ball python genes can really go through some amazing transformations. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to jump over the internet and I want to show you the transformation of a Lavender Albino from a hatchling to an adult. Alright, so I'm going to jump over here on Morphmarket.com and I want to start with just a regular albino so you can really compare the albino, the traditional, the original albino with the Lavender Albino. And this is what an albino looks like. It is a yellow and white snake and it always has bright red eyes. If you actually take a look at the snake really close, you'll actually see there's pretty much only two colors when it comes to an albino, the white and the yellow. And when it comes to a lavender, it's kind of interesting. The Lavender Albino actually starts out looking almost exactly the same as an albino. So this snake right here, this is a Lavender Albino. And you can actually be deceived if you go to like a reptile show or maybe over to Morphmarket and you say, all right, I'm gonna buy a Lavender Albino. You buy a snake like this, let me tell you, this snake can drastically change from when it's a hatchling to when it's an adult. And here is an adult albino. I wanted to show you just what a regular albino looks like. It almost keeps the same color and pattern as when it's smaller. It almost looks exactly the same as when it was a hatchling. So if you're looking for something that's actually going to age and look exactly like it was when it's a hatchling, I would go for the regular albino. And this is what happens to the Lavender Albino when you actually grow it up and get some age on this snake. Take a look at this. It completely transforms into a completely different snake, and it almost has like this lavender background to it. It looks really awesome, completely different than the regular albino. And sometimes you can actually be tricked into buying a snake thinking it's actually going to age, especially if you're used to the regular albinos, you know, starting out really bright white as a background and then aging with the really bright white, and the Lavender Albino completely changes that. So I kind of wanted to show you a couple other snakes, especially this one right here. This is actually the Lavender Albino with the pied gene. It's called a dreamsicle, the Lavender Albino pied. And if you actually take a look at the snake, it looks almost exactly like an albino pied. I actually pulled up an albino pied over here. This is what an albino pied looks like, almost exactly the same. As a matter of fact, this is actually an adult albino pied, and you can see even as an adult, it really keeps a lot of the same color as it was when it's a hatchling. And here's what happens to the dreamsicle, the Lavender Albino pied, as it gets some age on it. Take a look at this. It really transitions. You can actually see the white from the pied really stays like a bright white. It really keeps a lot of the bright white, but you see everywhere where you actually have the white from the albino portion of the snake, you can kind of see like right in here, right along the neck. This was like really bright white when it was a hatchling, and it turns into this purplish color. Pretty amazing. I actually have one other example here of a dreamsicle as an adult, and it's pretty amazing how they can transition over to this completely different looking snake. If you actually look at these as hatchlings, all the purple color in here, all in the neck and all in the body, this is all a really bright white, and it can kind of trick you if you actually buy one and you're not really expecting it to change when you buy into the dreamsicle project. Here's another one. This is actually a pinstripe ball python. The pinstripe is probably the goldest ball python that you can actually get. It's a dominant morph, so if you breed it to something else, half the offspring come out as pinstripe. And if you actually work it into Lavender Albino, which is kind of tricky because both the Lavender Albino and the albino are both recessive mutations. So essentially what you'd have to do is you'd have to breed like an albino to a pinstripe, and then you'd get pinstripe het albinos, and then you'd have to breed the hets together together to actually get a visual. But this is what happens if you actually take Lavender Albino and work in the pinstripe. Take a look at this thing. This is really amazing. And some of these can really trick you. As hatchlings, I'd say in a lot of cases the hatchlings are so much more impressive than adults in a lot of these combos. And when it comes to the lavender pinstripe, this is so amazing. And it's kind of interesting. It actually fades out quite a bit and transitions into a different looking snake. You can see this one maybe doesn't have the age on it. As you would see, a lot of times the white pinstripes in here will turn into like a purplish color, and they'll lose that really bright white color that you see as a hatchling. And it seems like they start as the really bright white and maybe kind of transition over into like a duller white, and then as they mature it seems like it gets even more purplish, kind of a lavender color as far as all the white areas of the snake. So here's an interesting combo. This is actually the cinnamon, which is a dark morph. And when you actually mix the cinnamon in with albino or lavender albino, essentially what it does is it really reduces the amount of yellow and increases the amount of white. So I've actually showed quite a few of these over on Morphmarket. And actually, if you take a look at the lavender albino cinnamon, it looks like a really amazing snake. And you think you're buying into this project with, you know, a really high white background, and you start thinking, all right, what can I add to the background to kind of enhance this, not knowing that the background that's bright white will actually turn into a deep lavender color. So this is a cinnamon lavender as an adult. Take a look at this. This is one of the more impressive combos. I really like a lot of white on these lavender albinos because you get a lot of purple color coming in as they mature. As a matter of fact, if you're actually kind of going back and forth between the lavender albino and the albino, I'd say if you're looking at just the money, a lot of times the lavender albino is a lot more expensive than the regular albino. As a matter of fact, if we look back like at a dreamsicle, I'm just going to hold my spot right here and come back to one of these dreamsicles. Like for example, this dreamsicle adult ball python, look at the price on this. This actually sold for $7,500. Pretty incredible. And let me tell you, you won't find an albino pied that is that expensive unless it's lavender albino. For some reason, the lavender albino is just a lot more expensive than the regular albino. So here is the spider ball python. The spider is kind of an interesting mix when you mix it with the lavender albino. The spider is a dominant morph. You actually breed it to something, half the offspring come out as spiders. And a lot of people say the spider, the super spider, is a lethal combination, so you never really want to breed two spiders together or two snakes that contain the spider gene. You really want to avoid that. And here's what happens if you work spider into the lavender albino. Take a look at this. And as a hatchling, it is so impressive. It is really, it's in a lot of these combinations, you'll actually see a lot of really high contrast between the colors and the really bright white background. And you tend to lose a lot of that contrast as the snake ages and matures. Here is a spider lavender albino as an adult. Take a look at this. It's completely different. It seems like in a lot of these combos, I've noticed that a lot of the yellow kind of fades and a lot of the purples just really kind of pop out. It's pretty amazing how purpley these really get. I say as far as getting a purple ball python, this is probably as close as you can get to something that is purple. So here is the axanthic, and this is, I kind of wanted to show you the difference when you mix axanthic in with albino versus axanthic with lavender albino. There's a really huge difference between the two. Essentially, if you actually take axanthic and mix it in with albino, you get what is known as a snow, which is an all-white snake with red eyes. And a snow is typically a completely white snake, maybe just a little bit of pattern, and then it has these bright red eyes. If you actually take the VPI axanthic and mix it in with the lavender albino, you get what is called a snow, but it doesn't really look like a snow. You pretty much lose the completely white snake, and you get a lot of pattern actually breaking through, which is kind of surprising because they're both lines of albino. Mix is completely different with the axanthic. So if you're actually looking to make some snows and get some really pure white snakes with bright white eyes, I'd probably go with the albino versus the lavender albino. All right, so it is time for the question of the day. And Kelly Williams asks, Are you going to be at the Pueblo Reptile Show in July? And that is a very good question. As a matter of fact, Pueblo, Colorado is about 2.5 hours south of where I live, so it's not really that far away. And pretty much this year, I'm not really going to any reptile shows. I'm not going to visit or sell at any of the shows because of the whole virus thing of 2020. I'm pretty much waiting for the vaccine. And, you know, a lot of people are saying that in January, we might have a working vaccine. We can actually get back to our regular lives. But, you know, in the meantime, I'm just kind of hunkering down here. And I think this year what I'm going to do is I'm going to hatch out all my ball pythons, and then I'll show them on YouTube and then post them over on Morphmarket and then give you a link for that. And you can actually go over there and buy them, and I'll just ship them through the mail. And hopefully next year I'll actually do one reptile show. As a matter of fact, I usually just do one reptile show a year where I actually go and sell my snakes. And that is usually the Denver Repticon in the fall at the Arapahoe County Fairgrounds. As a matter of fact, if I actually went and sold right now, I only have about 3 snakes for sale. I don't really have anything because I'm just getting my very first ball python eggs, and it takes at least 2 or 3 months before I'll actually have something for sale. So, you know, if they actually get a vaccine before the show in the fall, I will definitely be there with my display. But other than that, I'll probably wait until next year. So that is pretty much it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.